parallel. When two lines are parallel, that means they're lines like railroad tracks that never cross, correct? Yeah. And the symbol that you probably learned in geometry looks kind of like a slanted 11. Okay, so if I want to say line A is parallel to line B, I could write it like that, right? And parallel lines have equal slopes. Equal slopes. Let's see, it looks like I need some more space. Perpendicular. When two lines are perpendicular, that means they cross at a perfect right angle, right? And the symbol for that looks like this. So if I say line A is perpendicular to line B, I would use that symbol right there. Okay? And perpendicular lines have opposite, reciprocal slopes. So examples would be, if I have a line and its slope is 4/3, what would be the slope of a line perpendicular?
3/4.
Close.
Negative 3/4.
Negative 3/4. Opposite and reciprocal. So if I have a line and its slope is -5, what would be the slope of a perpendicular line?
5.
Nope.
1/5. Negative 1/5. 1/5.
Positive one, you change the sign and flip it over. So positive 1/5. Okay? What if I have a line and its slope is 0? What would be the line of a perpendicular? Undefined, because if it's 0, that means it's a horizontal line. So if it's perpendicular to that, it would have to be vertical, and vertical lines have undefined slopes. So 0 and undefined always go with each other as far as perpendicular lines. Okay? Everybody okay with that? All right, next page, first example. Okay, so in example 1, they tell you that you have these 4 points, and those 4 points make a quadrilateral, which, if you don't remember from geometry, is simply a 4-sided object. Okay, so it could be a trapezoid, it could be a square, it could be a rectangle, it could be a parallelogram, could just be a quadrilateral, 4 weird sides. Okay, but anyway, these points make the 4 sides of the quadrilateral. And the step A, or part A, the first step to this problem, it says find the slopes of the indicated sides of the quadrilateral. So I'll kind of draw a picture of what's going on here so you can get a better visual. But you've got some 4-sided object.
Wait a minute.
They don't indicate what it is.
Why is yours in color?
Because I copied it in black and white. So here's my 4-sided object. And it says the points go counterclockwise, so you can kind of put them wherever you want them. I guess I'll start down here at 1, 1, and work my way counterclockwise, 7, -1. It doesn't really matter where you start. 8, 4, and 2, 7. Obviously, you could put it on graph paper if you wanted to. But there's my object, and so now what they want me to do on this step is they want me to find the slope of the side that connects these 2 points, the 1, 1, and the 2, 7. So they want me to find the slope of this side right here. And then they want me to find the slope of this side right here, the 7, -1, and the 8, 4. So basically, they're asking me to find the slopes of opposite sides. So step 1 is going to be find the slope of these 2. Step B is going to be say find the slope of these 2. And then in step 3, it's going to ask if it's a parallelogram or not. Does anybody remember what the definition of a parallelogram is?
The definition of it?
What would a parallelogram be?
All sides are equal. Like
Nope.
Parallel.
Okay, they're opposites.
This is the same slopes and this is the same slope.
There you go. Opposite sides are parallel. So if these two sides come out with the same slope and these two sides come out with the same slopes, you're going to say, yeah, that thing's a parallelogram, because that's the definition of a parallelogram, is that opposite sides are parallel. They don't necessarily have to make right angles. If they made right angles, it'd also be a be a rectangle. Okay, but if they're parallel, then we know for sure that they do make a parallelogram. Okay, so let's find the change in y over the change in x. I'm doing slope here. That's a 1, 1 there. So what's the change in x and the change in y?
What are we doing?
So we're going from 1 to 2. Change in x is 2 to 1. So down 1, and how about 7 to 1?
-6.
Okay, so negative 6 over negative 1. Change in y over change in x would equal a 6. Okay? So the slope of this line right here is a 6. Okay, how about this line over here? That's these 2 points right here. Change in y is what? 4 to negative 1.
1 and 5. -5.
Okay, and the change in x from 8 to 7.
-1.
So that comes out to be 5. So right now we can tell you it's not a parallelogram, right? Because this one has a slope, this line has a slope of 6, and this one has a slope of 5. So you put a 6 in this box and a 5 in this box, and you hit submit. Everybody okay with step 1? All right, so turn the page for step 2.
So that's all you got to do on step 1?
Uh-huh.
This can be a long certified.
It's really not too bad. Okay, so there is step 2. Okay, so in step 2, they're asking you to do the same thing, but this time they want you to find the slope of the other 2 sides. Okay? So the slope from here to here, change in y, 8 to 4. Or no, 8 to 2, that's your change in x.
Yeah.
So how far is it from 8 to 2?
-6.
Okay, so the bottom number is -6. Change in y, 4 to 7.
3.
Okay, so my slope is -1/2. All right, how about my other side? Change in y, change in x.
2 over 6.
2's the bottom number, it's down 2 and up 6. Right? The vertical number on top, the horizontal number on bottom. So what's 6 divided by -2? Okay, so -1/2 and a -3. So question number, or step 3 is going to be, is this thing a parallelogram? So turn the page.
No.
Why is it not a parallelogram?
Different slope.
Because opposite sides do not have the same slope. So I think I've already marked the no there for you, but if you want to write why, you could write opposite sides do not have equal slopes.
Rewrite this in slope intercept form.
Okay? Everybody okay with example 1? Why is it?
My thing just ran away.
Go over there in that little thing on the top shelf, and there's extra pens and pencils you can borrow. Okay? Just put it back when you're done. All right, everybody okay with that? Okay, so example 1's easy, right? All right. Example 2. So this example has 2 steps, and step 1 simply says to do what?
Slope intercept form.
Put it in slope-intercept form. So what do I got to do to put that thing in slope-intercept form?
Multiply by 2.
Take everything times 2, and guess where people make the error on this part? Anybody know? So when you multiply this by 2, you get 8. When you multiply this by 2, you get 10. When you multiply this by 2, the 2's cancel. But notice you're left with a minus sign, and that minus sign is distributed to the whole thing. It goes with that whole fraction, and most people forget to distribute the negative. So be careful with that. Okay, make sure you write it, something like that in your notes, so if you look back, you don't miss it. So now if I distribute the negative, I've got 8 minus 8y minus 5x is equal to 10. So now I gotta get the, it's all right. So now I gotta get the y by itself. So to get this y by itself, I would first of all want to do what? Subtract 10? Subtract 8, and then maybe move the 5x over. So I'm gonna get negative 8y is equal to a positive 5x when I move that over. Subtract 8, and I get a positive 2.
Yeah.
Okay, now what?
Divide by negative.
Okay, or if you want to do it in 2 steps, some people like to change their signs first so that they know that they're not going to mess up on the signs, and then divide by 8. If you want to do it all in 1 step, that's great. So negative 5/8 x minus a fourth.
Yep.
Okay, so there's your equation in standard form, or I'm sorry, slope-intercept form, and that's what you're going to want to type into that box right there.
You could have made that a lot easier though, because you could just divide by, or you could just move the 4 over.
You could move the 4 in the beginning, that's true, and then multiply both sides by 2.
Or just change the signs first and then multiply by 2.
So subtract your 4, then change the sign so you don't have a negative here.
Yeah, because I did it that first
Yep,
time.
that's fine. You could do that. Subtract 4 first. Change your sign so the fraction isn't negative at all to begin with. That's not a bad idea. Everybody okay with that? All right, so step 2. And notice step 2 has our previous answer that we just got for us. That's the answer we got on step 1. So step 2 says, find an equation in slope-intercept form for the line which is perpendicular to the line and passes through this point. So I'm looking for a line perpendicular to this one and that passes through this point.
So 8/5 x.
Close. Oh, you're right, positive. I couldn't see the negative up there. So this line has a slope of negative 5/8. So you're saying that the line we're looking for has a slope of positive 8/5, right? So that's correct. So we know the line we're looking for has a slope of positive 8/5 and goes through this point.
Okay.
So if I know a slope and I know a point, what can I use?
Slope point form.
Point slope form. Okay? If I know a point and a slope, I can use point slope form. It doesn't ask me for point slope, but I can start in point slope and transform to this form. Okay? So what would anybody remember what point slope form is?
Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x.
Okay, and that's on your sheet if you need it. There's point slope form. Now I got to plug in for my point. I plug in for x1 and y1 these things right here, negative 6 and negative 2, and I replace m with 8/5. So if I do that, I'm going to have y. This means the opposite of y1,
So y plus 6
y plus 6.
equals m.
So y plus 6 equals a positive 8/5.
X.
And x, and the opposite of x1 would be, oh, I did that backwards. That's not a 6 there. That should be a 2 over here. That's the y value.
Oh. No biggie, no biggie.
Yeah, y plus 2 and x plus 6. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now from there, you have to transform that to slope-intercept form, and there's actually 2 ways to do that. Most people prefer to get rid of the fractions, okay? Some people actually like fractions and can work it with the fractions. But if you're going to get rid of the fraction, you'd want to take every term times what?
5
So if you take everything times 5, you'd have 5y
plus 2.
plus 10 equals 8 times x plus 6. Is everybody good with that? So that's 5y plus 10 equals 8x plus 48. And then I'd want to get y by itself. So if I get y by itself, I get a what, 38? Then I divide by 5 and I end up with 8/5 x, which is the slope I should come out with, equal or plus 38/5. So there's the answer in slope-intercept form. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to show you the other method real quick, in case anybody, Dylan, you might like doing it this way. Okay, so if you wanted to keep the fraction of the problem, your goal is to go to slope-intercept form. And in slope-intercept form, the y is by itself, right? So this y is almost by itself. I just need the 2 moved to the other side, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to distribute my 8/5 to both of these, and then I'm going to move my 2 to the other side. So I would have 8/5 x, and then I would have 8/5 times 6, which I'll work out in a second, which you could do in your head. Move the 2 over, and I have a minus 2, right? So now at this point, I need to multiply 8 times 6. What's 8 times 6?
48.
48. And now if I want to write the 2 as a fifth, it would be 10/5, right? Everybody agree that 2 is the same thing as 10 divided by 5? Okay, and I did that so that I would have a common denominator. That's the part that most non-fraction people hate. But 48 minus 10 is 38/5. I end up with the exact same answer I got down here. Okay? It's a little bit shorter if you don't mind fractions.
Another way that convolution works, you just take 6 times 5 is 30, and you add 8 that's on top. 38 over 5.
There you go. All right. Now, if you were going to standard form, you'd want to get rid of the fractions anyway, so it would make sense to multiply by 5. Okay, so my answer is given down here. Y equals, and go back and check it. Did this line end up perpendicular to this line? Are their slopes perpendicular? Yeah, they are. So as long as you didn't mess up with the y-intercept, you know you're okay. Okay? Everybody okay with example 2? All right? Example 3. And this is our last example. Okay, so on this one, you start out with 2 equations. And step 1 is simply to write the first one in slope-intercept form. Step 2 is to write the second one in slope-intercept form. And then step 3 is to tell if they're perpendicular or not. That's all there is to it. Okay? So looking at step 1, what am I going to have to do to get this thing in slope-intercept form?
Well, if you're Dylan, you're subtracting 2.
Okay, let's do it the way Dylan would say. Subtract 2. So if I subtract 2, then this is going to go away, and that's going to become a 4. Right?
Yep.
And then Dylan said, hey, we could change the sign so we don't have to mess with this negative in front of this thing. So, or you can multiply by -2. Either way, but a lot of times people forget the negative. So for those of you that struggle with negatives, you may want to just change the signs before you decide to multiply by 2. So if I change the signs, I'd have a -5x and a -4. And then you multiply everything by a 2, and you don't have to worry about forgetting to distribute. Okay? So if I multiply everything by a 2, I'm going to get these 2's canceling. I get 3y minus x is equal to -10x minus 8. And now I just got to get y by itself. So move your x over, add an x to both sides, and you get a -9x. Divide by 3, and I get what?
-3x minus 8 thirds.
Minus 8 thirds. Okay, so that's your answer to step 1.
Yep.
Everybody okay with step 1? All right, step 2, they want you to take the second line, and I really don't like that they ask you to do this because to me, it's in standard form, and you guys know how to find slope in standard form. You could just find the slope and then compare the slopes, right? But they ask you specifically to put it in slope-intercept, so we'll have to do that so that you can not miss the problem. So to get the y by itself, I would move the, 18x over, and make it a -18x plus 9 change your signs, or just divide by -6 if you want to do it all in one step. Okay, and then divide by 6, and we get 3x minus 9/6. Well, what does 9/6 reduce to? 3/2. So there's our answer to step 2. Everybody good with step 2?
Yeah.
All right, step 3.
No.
Now they want to know, and I've already got it marked for you, but why are they not perpendicular?
Because they have to be 1/3.
They have opposite signs, but they're not reciprocals, correct? So it's no, because slopes are not
That's it.
reciprocals.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
And that's all there is to it. Okay, now there'll be more problems than that, but a lot of the problems are like problem 2 and like problem 3. Okay? So just pay attention to what you're doing there and make sure you,
Just taking what we learned over the past couple of days.
yep, and applying the parallel and perpendicular knowledge to it.